Now, at the heart of any government program is going to be how do you pay for it? Right? If Roosevelt wants to put all these people back to work, just like his former Republican president wanted to do, Hoover, you have to pay for it somehow. You've got to find a way to make sure that people are using, or that program is paid for. So you know that there are generally two ways to do that, right? And we talked about that last chapter. You can have taxes, or you can borrow the money and repay it. Roosevelt is going to say, you know what we're going to have to do? We're just not even going to be able to have a balanced budget. A balanced budget is where your expenses equal your revenue, the amount of money you bring in. We're just going to have to use something called deficit spending, where you borrow money to pay for those government programs, and you attempt to fund your government that way for at least a little while. And this is something that has been done for a long time by a lot of different presidents. First thing to understand, again, and make sure you get this, is that in deficit spending, what you're looking at is a lot of expenditures, right? And this is going to be the second New Deal. All the programs we'll talk about today. And you have only a little amount of money coming in, revenue. And this, of course, is because everyone that we know, right, is so poor. There's so many businesses that have collapsed, right? So they're not in business anymore paying taxes. People are unemployed, so they're not paying taxes. So you have to fund these expenditures somehow. And the answer to do that, the solution in deficit spending is to take out that loan. And it's highly controversial because someone has to pay it back, right? Just like any credit card bill. Who's going to pay that back, right? When you look at this, conservatives typically dislike the New Deal because it has too much regulation of business and too much power to the president. And typically, while you see Republicans not like deficits, what I want you to understand is that even in the present day, most presidents, Republican or Democrat, have used deficit spending. Here's Reagan. Reagan is a Republican. He used deficit spending. So are the two Bushes, Republicans. They also used deficit spending. And even President Clinton and Obama here as Democrats, they too use deficit spending. Every time you see a line here beneath the 0% marker, that's a deficit where our government spent more money than it made, so it needed to take out loans. And this is really going to try and motivate and keep our economy moving so that we can be successful in the long term. This is going to cause an increased conflict with conservative Republicans and conservatives in general. Roosevelt, between 1932 and 1934, puts in the first New Deal, and it has success. The country is on the path to prosperity again. And conservatives are going to say, all right, it's time to back off. It's time to get government out of the economy again. Let's let things begin to pick up on their own. And whereas Roosevelt is saying, actually, no, it's not. We need to continue to do more. We have to deficit spend. We need more government programs to lower that unemployment rate even further. And that's going to create a lot of conflict that we're going to see a little bit later on in this lesson and in the next lesson. So let's take a look at these programs that Roosevelt's going to make. The really big one of the second New Deal that makes a huge amount of difference in lowering that unemployment rate and getting people to support Roosevelt is the Works Progress Administration. They are going to build more public works than any other group that we've talked about so far. And remember, we've talked about a lot, right? The Emergency Construction and Relief Agency under Hoover. We talked about the PWA yesterday under the first New Deal. Now we're taking a look at the Works Progress Administration, and they are going to build tons of stuff, more than any other. It's the largest public works program. But what's interesting about this is that, remember, Roosevelt is trying to build a coalition, a group of people, a New Deal coalition, a group of people that are going to support his policies and programs. And so we know that pretty much anyone who he gives a job to is going to support him. And so lots of people doing manual labor in these public works will support him. But what's interesting is that Roosevelt is expanding that New Deal coalition to include not just people that are unemployed, but also intellectuals, people that are academics, people that are artists, musicians, theater people, and writers, because the WPA, for the first time, is going to put those people to work as well, documenting life during the Great Depression. In fact, this photograph taken by, I don't know if you remember, Dorothea Lange, is part of the WPA's process to document the lives of Americans during the Great Depression. So the government paid Dorothea Lange to go to work to document the Great Depression, and it's how we know about the intense, immense suffering these people endured. So thanks to the WPA, Roosevelt's now going to have at least two different groups, unemployed and intellectuals, that will continue to support him in the upcoming election in 1936.